It's so sticky, but it feels so good.
All right, everybody, welcome back to Metal Mailbag Friday. It's a new series, newish. Trying to get more on camera because AI. I keep getting fucking accused of being AI.
Artificial intelligences do not have teen fetishes.
And trust me, if I was AI, would I look like this?
It's not smart, not attractive.
Would I sound like this? No. Who the fuck would choose this look and voice? I don't know who. Not many. But so this is going to be one of those topics where I can already feel my brain start doing things where it wants to organize everything into neat little folders. And unfortunately, that's usually a sign I'm about to mess it up. So let's just talk it out. I've been getting a lot of questions lately about new wave of American heavy metal. And I get why. Because enough time has passed that it's starting to feel like history, but not so much time at it. It's settled into one clean story. And honestly, I don't think it ever will. So here are 3 questions that came in. And I'm going to fucking answer them the way I remember it. With flawed memory, half-formed thoughts, and all. So the first question. Did it actually feel like a movement at the time, or is that something we only call it now? So technically, no. And I say that because I didn't even know it had its own title. I don't categorize it like that, and I'll probably contradict myself somewhere here, but no. And yes, there's the contradiction, but mostly no.
Maybe the contradiction is the point.
At the time, it didn't feel like a banner anyone was standing under. Nobody knew, or at least nobody I knew, was saying, we're now entering the new wave of American heavy metal. Wasn't in the terminology. That name felt like it showed up after the fact. Like someone needed a way to group together a bunch of bands that didn't quite, they didn't quite fit the old categories anymore. And what it felt like, at least to me, because I could only answer for me, was a bunch of bands suddenly sounding heavy in a way that felt physical again. For instance, you'd go see Lamb of God. Or Shadows Fall. Or God Forbid. And there was this sense that the riffs mattered again. Not flashy for the sake of it, not extreme just to be extreme. It was heavy in a way that made sense live, in the room, with the bad lighting and the sticky floors.
Oh, it's so sticky, but it feels so good.
But hold on, let me back it up just for a second, because I might be mixing this up with my own nostalgia a little. Part of why it didn't feel like a movement is because everything was fragmented at the time. Magazines were dying. The internet was half-formed. Scenes were regional. What felt unified in hindsight felt scattered in real time. There was just this, like a quiet realization creeping in that American bands were doing something that was different than what Europe had been exporting for years. Not necessarily better, not necessarily worse. It was just theirs. And that took a while to register. So the second question, how connected were the metalcore bands to the rest of the new wave of American heavy metal, really? And this is where it gets fucking weird, because this whole answer depends on who you were standing next to at the show. The bands like Killswitch Engage, Unearth, were absolutely part of the same ecosystem. They were on the same tours, the same clubs, drove the same vans that broke fucking down in the same fucking parking lots. But culturally, there was this invisible line people pretended wasn't there, until it suddenly was. It appeared. I remember people insisting metalcore wasn't real metal, which feels almost funny now. But at the time, though, it was taken very seriously. And looking back, I think a lot of that tension wasn't musical at all. It was aesthetic. It was haircuts, merch designs, who your crowd was. And that stuff seemed to matter more than anyone wanted to admit. But here's the thing. I always come back to, when those bands played, the rooms went off. Period. That's the part that cuts through all the genre arguments. Sure, we can intellectualize metal all you want, but if the pit explodes and the riff lands, something real is happening. You may not like it, and I might be misremembering how hostile it really was. It could have been louder online than in real life. But I do remember a gradual softening. By the mid-2000s, it felt less like us versus them, and more like, okay, this is just the landscape of music now, of heavy metal now. And honestly, for a second, that blending is probably why the whole thing had as much impact as it did. It wasn't one sound, it was a collision, a car crash. Here's the third question. Why do you think the NWOAHM burned out instead of evolving into something bigger? This is one of those that keep turning over in my head, and I don't have a clean answer. And part of it is just the cycle of scenes. That's the music scene. They rise, they peak, get overexposed, and then the industry moves the fuck on. And that happened here too. Because if you remember, labels started chasing the sound. Festivals got bigger, expectations got heavier. And while some bands adapted, some didn't. Some just got fucking tired. But I also think the new wave of American heavy metal, a fucking lengthy fucking sentence. It sounds ridiculous to even say. But regardless, it was never meant to be a permanent thing. Because it was a moment where a bunch of musicians just simply reacted to what came before them. They fixed what they felt was broken and then moved on. And once that correction happened, the urgency faded. I think I do, at least. I realized at some point, maybe around when deathcore and gent started creeping in, that the conversation had shifted. Because the kids coming up didn't need the new wave of American heavy metal as a framework anymore. They already had permission to be heavy in whatever way they fucking wanted to be. And this is where I kind of have to correct myself just a little. Saying it burned out isn't really fair. Because the bands didn't disappear. They just stopped being framed as a wave. They became bands, legacy acts, influences instead of insurgents. Which might actually be the most metal fucking outcome possible. Anyway, this is how I remember it. At least probably missing pieces. Definitely using my own fucking crayons to color in my own experiences. But that's the fun of these questions. Beyond proving I'm not fucking AI.
AI off.
But if you've got any questions about scenes, eras, bands, they don't fit in neatly anywhere, send them in. I like sitting with this stuff out loud. So yeah, Headbangers History. Mondays, we got Heavy History. It's a B-roll audio, which means not my fucking face on it, which I think is a gift. Instead, I get flooded with AI garbage. Shame on you. I'm tired of it. I put so much work into this. But that's life. Okay, I'm Fred Carroll. This is the Metal Mailbag. Every Friday, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Go Patriots. And if you don't like the Patriots, I don't care. That's it. Goodbye.